So recently, I've been seeing a bunch of people post clips from the original Fantastic Four movies on Twitter, and seen a bunch of people saying how terrible these movies are and how they are really bad. But honestly, I would have to disagree. But seeing those posts gave me the idea for this video to go over 3 of the Marvel movies that I believe are the most underrated in all of Marvel's catalog. I probably have a couple of hot takes in here, and one that honestly shouldn't be a hot take. Considering the way I started this video, you could probably already tell one of them is going to be the 2005 Fantastic Four. So let's go over that one first. I am a firm believer that this movie is good or decent. It may be a bit of nostalgia speaking, but even when rewatching now as unbiased as possible, I still fail to see why people say this movie is bad or even call it horrible. Now don't get me wrong, there are glaring issues with this movie and things that this movie does that are bad. For one, and the most important, Doctor Doom was portrayed very, very poorly in this movie. Now there is no sugarcoating it. Having one of your main characters and main villain be done so bad will hurt the movie very negatively, which is why I don't say this movie is great or amazing. Doctor Doom was very weird here. He kind of gave off more of a Norman Osborn type character in this movie, with his whole motivation being him losing all of his investors and seeing his company start to tank. Like, this scene here is almost a pure one-to-one from the first Spider-Man movie. Doctor Doom's actor was also not that great, to be honest. He had a couple of moments, but mostly it was just hard to take him seriously at all, and he just seemed really goofy. Now, while Doctor Doom being bad is a big hindrance to the movie, other than that, there isn't much wrong with it, except Sue Storm kind of just being used like an anime fan service character for the majority of the movie, which, I mean, I get it, it's Jessica Alba, but we're kind of forgetting to make her a real character in between all the sex appeal. This movie is also a bit corny when it comes to certain scenes and dialogue, but to me it was corny in the most charming way possible. The way the main cast interacts with each other is so great, and that also speaks to how great the casting was for the 4 main heroes. You hear it all the time about this movie, but that's because it's true. The casting in this movie for the Fantastic Four team is borderline perfect. The Thing looks incredible in this movie, or should I say, fantastic.
Say that again?
It is a bit weird sometimes to see how short he is compared to the other members when he's next to them, but he still looks great. Johnny's character is portrayed so well with Chris Evans' cocky sassiness. I just wish he would have had like a blonde wig on instead of just the buzz cut. Sue Storm, while being used a lot for sex appeal, was still good, and you'll never hear me complain about Jessica Alba in a movie. And Reed Richards, I think, is absolutely perfect. Ian Grufford just looks like he's Reed. And whenever I think of Mr. Fantastic, I think of this guy first, and I hear this guy's voice in my head when reading any comics with Mr. Fantastic. On top of the casting, the costumes in this movie are some of my favorite superhero costumes in all of live-action superhero movies. They look so clean. The material looks smooth and shiny, and makes the blue color pop so well. And the 4 logo goes so hard. I also love the way they use their powers in this movie. They use them in such creative and unique ways. Like, I love the one scene with Johnny making popcorn using his own hand to heat it up. Small shit like that really makes the powers and characters feel more real, and it's such a nice touch. I also like how they use their powers in tandem in the end. The final fight wasn't just who can punch the other harder, but it was the team actively working together. It was very nice and cool to see. Overall, I think this movie gets way too overhated, and is one of the most underrated Marvel movies in my opinion. This movie just feels like a comic book brought to life. I really don't get the hate other than Doctor Doom. Next, let's go over one that I think isn't much of a hot take, or at least it shouldn't be. Now, this movie is one that is loved by fans, but I see people say all the time that this is the worst Avengers movie, that Ultron was a wasted villain, and that it felt more like an intermission movie, but I heavily disagree. Now, there is some bias going into this, because this is actually my favorite MCU movie, but it became my favorite for a reason. It's just good. It's not like I had any bias towards any of the characters either. Before going in, none of these characters were any of my favorite Marvel characters. The movie just spoke for itself. This movie has so many characters, but does such a great job at fleshing out every single one. Not only do all of the main cast of Avengers have their own moments, and they finally start to delve into Hawkeye as a character, but they add a bunch of new characters like the Maximoffs and Vision, and no one felt tacked on or forgotten. The movie felt so well balanced when it came to the characters. Then to talk about Ultron. People say he wasn't used to his full potential, and this movie felt more like an intermission movie just building up to the next one, but I still heavily disagree. Ultron actually had aura. And yes, I know I just said that unironically, but for real, he did. His introduction scene when he talks to the Avengers for the first time is one of, if not my favorite scene in all of the MCU. His voice is so good and it literally gives me chills on some nerd shit. I loved how sassy and annoyed his character was all of the movie too. He was also going speech for speech with Steve Rogers, and not many can do that. His last speech with the "when the dust settles, the only thing left will be metal" goes so hard. He was dropping quotables every time he spoke. Like, I'm the #1 MCU Ultron glazer. Also, the impact Ultron had on the MCU was massive. He is the tipping point for the Sokovia Accords, and the reason we even have Vision as a character. Maybe this is why people say it just feels like it leads to other movies instead of being its own, but the movie is still a complete movie on its own. It just happened to influence the other movies that came after, but that just speaks to how impactful his character actually was. This movie is so good to me and is top tier MCU, and even though people still agree it's good, I still feel it's underrated because people rank it at the bottom of all the Avengers movies, when I think it clears the first one. And Ultron is one of the best villains in the MCU, just under Thanos in my opinion. And sure, I would have loved to see him make a return, but I still don't think he was wasted at all. Now let's go to the final one, which is probably a bit of a hot take, but just hear me out. Okay, yes, I am going to defend Thor: The Dark World and say it is a bit underrated. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this movie is great by any means, and it is a bit boring, but I always hear people say this is bottom tier MCU, and I just think that that's a bit of an exaggeration. This movie I think is just as good, or maybe just a little bit worse than the first Thor. These movies are very similar in vibe. This one just suffers from a villain that is super lame and boring, which causes the movie to feel a little bit boring. The final fight was still cool and fun, especially with them warping back and forth between different realms. I just think the only reason people say this movie is so bad is because the time period in which it came out, and the movies it came out in between. This movie came out after the first Avengers and before Captain America: Winter Soldier. Any movie would look bad in between those two. Those are some of the best in the MCU catalog. During the time this movie came out, yes, this was bottom tier MCU, but now looking back, it was never really that bad and is on par with the first Thor movie for me at least. Not much more to say for this one, since again, I don't think this movie is amazing. I just think this movie gets a way worse rap than it really kind of deserves, and I would classify it as underrated because it isn't that bad of a watch. Anyway, I've had this on my mind for a while, but after all the Fantastic Four slander on my Twitter timeline, I decided I'd just make a video on it now. In April, I will be going on a trip to Japan, so the next few videos might be a bit shorter and quicker topics, just so I can get them done and ready while I'm not home. So hopefully I'll still have an upload ready for April and May, even though I will be in Japan for a couple weeks. I also am trying to stream more on Twitch again, so you should follow me over there. No promises or anything, the streams will be very inconsistent and random, just whenever I have time or I'm feeling it, but I would like to try to get back into it. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed. Do you agree or disagree with any takes I have, and what are some of your Marvel movies that you feel are underrated? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.